All right, everyone, welcome back for another episode. Um, I was working on this portrait, and so I wanted to just kind of show you guys some of the things that I do, that go on when I'm doing faces. Faces are, in a lot of people's opinions, some of the toughest things to draw, especially when you need it to look exactly like somebody, which is the case here. If you're just drawing a face, and any face, all you really need is two eyes, a nose, and a mouth, right? Maybe a couple of ears and some hair. But when you're trying to go for exactly somebody, you the most important thing is the proportions. So can't stress it enough. Just take your time, drawing out your really fine outline, and just take your time. Take your time and make sure it's right. Use a ruler if you need to scale something in. If you really want to make it really easy on yourself, it takes some time as well, but it's probably worth it to just make a grid. There's several tutorials on how to do that. I choose not to do grids just because I don't know. Part of me likes a challenge. Part of me just doesn't want to deal with more lines on the paper. But yeah, it's my way of doing it, and I like it. I kind of take pride in not using a grid, just being able to eyeball things in. Granted, I probably spend just as much time, if not longer, than I normally would, but whatever. Anyways, you can just see I'm kind of building up tones, and I have I think I'm using three stumps. I got one that I know is loaded with a lot of charcoal from previous work, and I'll use that to put in some dark tones. And I got that one that I was just using to, put in some very fine, barely noticeable gray tones. Or I use it just to kind of smudge around what I already put in there. Um, yeah. So you can see that it's just tedious. I'm basically just making sure that I haven't really missed anything. I'm looking back and forth from the reference photo and back to my drawing. Ultimately, like that's good, but what really makes it easy to notice differences between your drawing and the photo is to take a photo of your drawing and look at that photo with your reference, side by side, because then you'll know right away where the differences are. Um, yeah, in this drawing, because it's kind of smaller, I was a little loose on my usual routine of drawing everything from left to right. I kind of bounced around. I did some work on the right side of the face, and then now I'm back to the left. Because it's not too busy of a drawing, I'm not that worried about smudging going on. I always got my paper, for my hand, just so that I'm not smudging the daylights out of it. But yeah, um, I know some people have a lot of trouble drawing mouths, which is what I'm starting on right here. And honestly, when it comes to lips, a lot of people draw dark outlines around the whole lip, or they kind of take weird um, ways to do it. What I'm doing in there is I'm putting in my darks first, just like I do on most things. So obviously the darkest parts is going to be between the lips. Every mouth is different, so look at your reference on the portrait that you're trying to draw, and see what you need to do for that. Darkest spots for me was between the lips, kind of around the teeth. And now there's a lot of shadow going on in this photo. You can just see from the way the hat casts a shadow on the face. So there's going to be some interesting lighting as the light kind of shines on the side of the cheek and the lips there. There's my dark charcoal stump that it's already dirty, and I know I'm going for a dark tone, so I'm working it in there, just smudging it all out and kind of getting rid of the graininess. I remember when I was first drawing it, I felt like I made the lips too dark, but what ends up happening is as you smudge around and you end up working over the same areas over and over, you end up picking up charcoal off the paper and it ends up lightening up no matter what. It's actually a challenge if you, even if you nail the tone the first try, chances are because you're going to be working in the area, adding details, blending and maybe some erasing, that area is going to lighten up a lot. Just because no matter what, you end up picking up some charcoal off the paper. And even right now, the lips look a little too dark. But as we add to the rest of the face, you'll see that it basically works. And most of the time, unless it's a girl and she's wearing makeup, the skin on the lips is darker than the rest of the face. So you can keep that in mind. And generally speaking, most people's lips don't have a line going all the way around. It's just one tone of skin, that it's there's a seam, but there's no line, and then it's like the next tone of the rest of the face. So here I'm just lightly putting in some tones. I've noticed that in some of my drawings lately, I kind of maximize the use of negative space. Like realistically, I could have made the whole face a very very light gray tone, but I kind of like the brightness that comes with just using a lot of negative space. As you can see, I'm putting in some very very light gray tones in these areas, but I think it kind of helps accentuate some shadows and create that brightness of the scene. This image was taken outside. Probably sometime in the afternoon when in a clear sky when the sun's just beating down on his face. But yeah, I'm going back in. I'm gonna work that shadow there several times just because it's gotta look right. That whole corner of the mouth just took a lot of work, to be honest. I kept on going back. It's crazy, especially when you're dealing with light tones, and in the cheek and things like that. You gotta get it just right because it changes the look of the face so much. And honestly, it's hard to explain this drawing here. And when I got to the end and I thought it was finished, I did that thing that I mentioned where I brought in I took a photo of my drawing because I thought I was done, and then I looked at it and I looked at my reference side by side, and then you start seeing all these little things that don't match up. So yeah, I spent maybe another 20 minutes tweaking things here and there. I did the same thing. I took another photo because I thought I was done, and then I ended up spending another 20 minutes. And what I'm saying is you should expect that because some of the finer details you're not going to notice right away. They won't scream out at you. You kind of have to step back and look at it in a different lens, so to speak. In this case, literally the lens of my phone, that I took the picture with. But yeah, you can see here putting in the shading under the chin. Just because now that I've made that dark, it makes the darkness of the lips not so dark, not so harsh. And that's one thing you kind of learn too. If you want to make something look bright, but maybe it's already a gray, you don't necessarily need to make that part whiter. Maybe you can make it look brighter just by making what's around it darker. But that's something you'll just have to play with on your own and kind of see what works. Just trust your eyes and yeah, definitely take a picture. That to me helps the best. Yeah, with the chin there was a few dark spots. It's probably like sometimes I go in with the darks right away. You'll notice that. And sometimes if it's a larger area and it's all got a certain tone to it, maybe I'll just go in and make it gray. So the shadowing on the face here, you see me kind of jumping around and putting little bits here and there, not really smooth. And the reason for that is because just looking at the photo and the way the sun's kind of glancing off the skin, you end up seeing the the bumps, I guess, in the skin. If you look at the skin on your face, generally speaking, it's not perfectly smooth. Like I don't know, even know what to compare it to. It's not like a balloon with a nice smooth surface. It's got a few little bumps and imperfections. But hey, so kind of working in the shadows off that, and it ends up coming together. Anyways, we're out of time. I hope you enjoyed that little, sped up video. Uh, I don't know what you guys want me to talk about. If you want to talk about more about little techniques or this or that, basically, it's tough for me to teach this because I don't really know. Like, it's hard for me to break down what I'm doing because I was never taught. But I put in charcoal, I smudge it, and sometimes I erase some out. Sometimes I add more details. Yeah, I don't know. Keep your pencil sharp. Do what you gotta do. All right. Thanks, guys.